Next, on Current News, the pandemic is forcing people into homelessness, but a new building in the Bronx is offering hope.
A community room, a laundry room, and even a daycare. Just some of the things the residents of the new Catholic Charities of New York building have access to. I'm Emily Rudy, that's ahead.
Plus, addressing the nation, President Biden is set to deliver his first speech to a joint session of Congress. He's expected to press for expanding access to health care and police reform. Abortion fight. 2 New York dioceses are asking the Supreme Court to review their case against the state. And a man attacks a mural of the Virgin of Guadalupe with a sledgehammer. The pastor is calling for justice, but praying for the suspect. Good evening, I'm Christine Persichetti. Catholic Charities opens a new building in the Bronx offering 100% affordable housing. The need for it is greater than ever during the pandemic. Emily Rudy shows us the new Second Farms housing complex, which offers 319 units for low-income families.
Skylar and her 2 brothers are the most important thing in the world to Tamika Gather. So when a dangerous situation forced them into the shelter system, she was devastated.
It was depressing. It was really depressing. Like, I used to cry like every day and blame myself for the situation I got into.
Tamika tells us while they had a place to stay, they didn't have a reliable place to call home.
When it was like 2 degrees outside, we didn't have no heat. I had to boil water for my kids to stay warm. My kids, I had to buy blankets. I had to go to my mom's house to get a space heater. Like, it was really cold and we had to suffer.
Now she does. An apartment at Catholic Charities of New York's new housing complex.
I love my apartment. I would not trade it for nothing in the world.
A safe, clean, and affordable place for her family. We filmed both her and Catholic Charities employee Renee Lopez in the building's sample apartment for anonymity and safety. Her identical apartment is also here at Second Farms, housing for low-income families. 319 beautiful units, 38 reserved for people who were homeless.
Right now I'm in the community room. They also have a laundry room, a daycare room, a fenced-in courtyard, and soon they'll even have their own supermarket. Thousands of people applied to live in this building, and they're still going through applications, but they expect to be full soon.
I mean, the average rent now in the Bronx is like $2,000 a month for a 1-bedroom. So now they're able to move to an apartment where it's so much more affordable for them, where they could work, bring their children to the daycare, go to the supermarket.
Rent already too high for many, but the pandemic and rampant unemployment it caused has made it even worse. An estimated 1.2 million households are at risk of eviction in New York State, according to financial consulting firm Stout. This building, which took 2 years to build, is helping to relieve that financial burden for families like Tamika's.
I've been praying so hard because I was in the system for like 3 years. And I prayed, and I swear God answered my prayers.
Her most important prayer, a forever home for her family. In the Bronx, Emily Rudy, Current News.
2020 and the coronavirus pandemic brought record spikes in the homeless population. According to a report from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, last year was the first time in recorded history where more people were unsheltered than sheltered. Another first, the number of unsheltered families with children increased, with just under 172,000 people in families experiencing homelessness. Experts say it can have disastrous effects on children. According to the American Psychological Association, half of school-age homeless children experience problems with depression and anxiety. 1 in 5 preschoolers have emotional problems that require professional help. They also find homelessness for children is linked to health conditions such as malnutrition and chronic illnesses like asthma. All students in the Diocese of Brooklyn will be back in classrooms in person soon. The diocese saying they will fully reopen their 69 schools in compliance with required COVID guidelines, though no word yet on when. The Brooklyn Diocese says they will also maintain their St. Thomas Aquinas online academy for anyone who wants to continue distance learning. The Archdiocese of New York is also planning to open their academies for in-person learning next year. However, a spokesperson there says they will no longer offer remote classes. The announcement comes as the city of New York is set to pay for COVID testing for Archdiocese schools, as well as reimburse the costs for all past testing. Two New York dioceses are taking their fight against abortion to the Supreme Court. The dioceses of Albany and Ogdensburg and other Catholic ministries want the court to hear their case against New York's abortion coverage mandate. It requires employers cover abortions in their employee health insurance plans. The state granted a religious exemption to the rule, but the diocese and other religious groups say it's too narrow. The organs and tissues of aborted babies can once again be used by federal researchers. This after the Biden administration lifted restrictions put in place by the Trump administration. U.S. bishops called it deeply offensive to Americans that taxpayer money is paying for this research. The White House is now responding.
I think the White House respectfully disagrees, and we believe that it's important to invest in science and look for opportunities to cure diseases, and I think that's what this is hopeful to do. Go ahead.
White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki responding to a question about the administration lifting a ban on researchers using fetal tissue from elective abortions, saying the president respectfully disagrees with Catholic bishops. The USCCB's pro-life chair condemned the decision after the announcement from the National Institutes of Health earlier this month, saying, quote, "The bodies of children killed by abortion deserve the same respect as that of any other person. Our government has no right to treat innocent abortion victims as a commodity that can be scavenged for body parts to be used in research." John Brahaney from the National Catholic Bioethics Center says the federal government spends roughly $100 million a year just on fetal tissue research.
$100 million on tissue taken from aborted babies is a lot of money. And there are all kinds of researchers out there who want access to that money.
Also, in reversing these Trump-era policies, those researchers at outside facilities who are seeking federal funding are no longer required to first submit fetal tissue research proposals to an ethics board.
The Trump administration did not bar everything, but their ethics rules and processes made people justify their need for this tissue, explain how they were going to get it, I think have to account for whether there were alternatives, and the Biden administration again lifted all of these things.
And Brahaney added there are alternatives, and as Catholics, we have to call for those alternatives to be used in research. President Biden is set to announce $200 billion in funding for universal pre-K. A White House official says it's part of a sweeping spending package that will be unveiled later Wednesday. The official said the proposal will direct the funds to universal preschool for all 3- and 4-year-olds through a national partnership with states. The White House estimates the proposal will benefit 5 million children and save the average family $13,000. The proposal will be part of the president's first address to a joint session of Congress. The White House says he's been working with advisors and policy experts over the last few weeks to craft the speech, which comes around his 100th day in office. Currents News' Jessica Easthope has a preview.
Acknowledging his administration's steps toward battling the COVID-19 pandemic in its first 100 days, especially the vaccination effort, President Joe Biden will use his first speech to a joint session of Congress to outline his next priorities, in particular for the U.S. economy.
What you'll hear the president say tonight is that we really have a once-in-a-generation opportunity right now to seize the moment, to make these investments, to really not only create jobs, but create jobs for the long haul.
A companion to his $2 trillion infrastructure and jobs proposal, the $1.8 trillion American Families Plan Biden will unveil tonight would invest in things like childcare, free community college, and paid family and medical leave. Biden also expected to press for action on expanding access to health care and on police reform legislation. Present for dozens of these presidential speeches as a U.S. Senator and as Barack Obama's vice president, Biden is likely to be guided by an understanding of the platform and its purpose.
It's not so much that the speech itself is persuasive, but that it's part of a larger rhetorical effort by the president to shape the agenda.
Tonight's audience limited to about 200 people in the House chamber, rather than a crowd that typically numbers 1,000 due to ongoing COVID precautions. Jessica Easthope, Currents News.
Federal agents have executed a search warrant at the Manhattan apartment of Rudy Giuliani. The search is part of the criminal investigation into the close ally of former President Trump, which has been going on for months. The former New York mayor turned Trump lawyer has been the focus of a probe concerning his activities in Ukraine. He denies any wrongdoing and hasn't been charged with a crime. New York City mayoral candidate Scott Stringer is being accused of sexual abuse. A former intern says Stringer harassed and abused her while he was in the assembly. She says the current city controller groped and kissed her without her consent and tried to pursue a sexual relationship. She's calling for him to abandon his campaign. At a news conference, Stringer strongly denied the allegations. Governor Cuomo's aides spent months hiding nursing home death tolls. That's according to a new report by the New York Times. They cite interviews and newly unearthed documents saying senior aides prevented the state's own health officials from releasing the true death toll to the public. The actions coincided with Cuomo pitching and writing a book on his handling of the pandemic. Faith leaders in North Carolina are speaking out on the case of Andrew Brown Jr. Brown was allegedly shot in the back of the head by sheriff's deputies as they tried to serve him a search warrant. Leaders from several local churches marched to the site of Brown's shooting and called for the release of the full body camera video, which a judge has denied. They also want independent investigators to take over the case. The Secretary of Homeland Security welcomes the nation's newest citizens in Manhattan. Alejandro Mayorkas swore in 39 people. The naturalization ceremony took place at the New York Public Library. The new Americans come from 21 different countries with different backgrounds and religions. This is Secretary Mayorkas' first naturalization ceremony since being sworn in as the Secretary of Homeland Security. Still to come here on Currents News, the search is on for the vandal who defaced a mural of the Virgin of Guadalupe. Plus, lending a hand. The U.S. is set to ramp up its efforts to provide COVID relief to foreign countries as the crisis in India grows.
There are now some big changes to the tablet website. You can get personalized access to the Catholic news you value. Sign up for free at thetablet.org.
Police in California are looking for a man caught on video vandalizing a church. The video shows him taking a sledgehammer and defacing a mural of Our Lady of Guadalupe. As Rachel Kim reports, the community at St. Elizabeth Catholic Church is asking for prayers.
You feel bad. I mean, you have no words.
The pastor and parishioners at St. Elizabeth Catholic Church were left saddened and stunned when they watched this security video. It shows a man armed with a sledgehammer vandalizing a Virgin of Guadalupe mural, which overlooks an altar where people come to pray and light candles.
The Catholic faith, the Virgin Mary is special because she's the mother of Jesus, the mother of God.
Father Vito DiMarcio says this unholy act happened around 1:30 a.m. Wednesday while he was sleeping on the other side of the building. He thought someone was knocking on the door, so he went back to sleep. The next morning, he discovered what had happened. The unidentified man, dressed in black and wearing a bright green or yellow neck gaiter, approached the mural and took one swing before hopping up on the altar. He then continued to angrily smash the tiles that make up the face of the Virgin Mary a dozen more times.
I was shocked. I went to say Mass and I invite all the people to pray for the author of this sacrilegious act.
The pastor called police to report the vandalism that defaced the hand-painted ceramic mural that was installed over 35 years ago as a symbol of unity.
I'm not angry. Since the beginning, we were praying for him, that he will repent, he will realize that he did something very wrong.
Father DiMarcio wants the suspect to be held accountable for what he did, but he also hopes the man will find help and healing from whatever issues he may be facing.
For sure, he needs some help, especially medical attention, I'm sure. He should ask for forgiveness, and the Lord will forgive him.
That was Rachel Kim reporting. The church says tiles in the mural will have to be replaced, and they plan to install barriers in front of it. A recent interfaith study shows white U.S. Catholics are near the top of the country's vaccination efforts. The Public Religion Research Institute polled just over 5,000 people and found that Jewish Americans have the highest rate of vaccine acceptance at 85%, with white Catholics following them at 68%. White evangelical Protestants and Hispanic Protestants fall on the other side of the spectrum, with more than half of each group voicing hesitancy to get the vaccine or refusing to do so. COVID-19 numbers in the U.S. are improving and more people are getting vaccinated, but other countries are worse off than ever before. Coronavirus surges around the world could present a major threat to the U.S. recovery. Camila Bernal reports as the nation looks to ramp up relief efforts overseas.
As the U.S. celebrates progress in the battle against COVID-19,
more than 67%, 2/3 of our seniors, are now fully vaccinated.
There's a renewed focus on helping those abroad.
The hard truth is none of us are safe until a vast majority of people are vaccinated.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken says getting the world vaccinated is a matter of national security.
As long as that virus is replicating somewhere, it's going to be mutating. And if it's mutating, it could come back to bite us.
The U.S. making plans to release 60 million stockpiled doses of AstraZeneca vaccine to other countries.
We want to make sure that the vaccines that we have in our possession or will soon have in our possession are safe, so the FDA is reviewing that, so we're still a couple of weeks away from that.
And joining international efforts to send aid to India, where an overwhelming surge in cases has led to drastic shortages in much-needed medical supplies.
We are sending immediately a whole series of help that he needs, including providing for those remdesivir and other drugs that are able to deal with this and prevent, in some cases, but help recovery.
I'm Camila Bernal reporting.
In India, they are reporting almost 350,000 cases a day and over 200,000 deaths. There is a desperate need for more oxygen to help patients battling the disease. Plants are working as fast as they can to refill cylinders and ship them back out. Catholic leaders in the country are now urging the government to deploy the military to help fight the pandemic before the crisis worsens further, saying, quote, "Whenever the country faced national calamities such as a flood, drought, earthquake, cyclone, or any such crisis, the Indian military played a crucial role to restore normalcy. It is high time that the government deployed the Army and other wings of the defense forces with their huge resources and trained manpower to tide over this calamity that has already crippled the economy and taken a huge toll on its population." Still to come on Currents News, a quick-thinking teacher notices a fire breaking out behind one of her students during a virtual class. And the inspiring story of one man with Down syndrome who credits his family and faith with getting him where he is today. A man with Down syndrome has defied the odds and credits his faith for his success. Mark Hubler is now a motivational speaker and an advocate for others with Down syndrome to join the workforce. He even inspired his own brother Greg to write a book about his life called A Miracle Named Mark. They are both joining us now. So let's start with you, Greg. You wrote in your book when Mark was born that your parents were actually encouraged to take him to an institution, but they decided against that, raising him as a child of God. Tell us how faith has played a role in shaping who Mark is today.
Yeah, faith was a major role for my parents as well as our entire family. When Mark was born, the term Down syndrome didn't even exist. They said, your son has Mongolism. And they had no idea what that meant. And they said that anybody in this situation definitely needs to be put into an institution because they'll essentially ruin your family. My parents were told that Mark would never walk, he would never talk, he'd never show any emotion, he'd live in a vegetative state, and that it just wouldn't do any good to take him home. So based on faith, they had no other recourse except for faith in making the decision to take him home and raising him as a child of God.
Wow. And Mark, I know you travel the country as a motivational speaker for Friends Like Me, advocating for employment with people with disabilities. Can either of you talk about the message you bring with you? You know, what do you want people to know?
I want everybody to know in this world that people with disabilities, Down syndrome, can do everything what they can do for you.
Yeah, anybody with disabilities, they can do anything they want, especially Down syndrome.
There's three things people need to know. When I talk about ROI.
ROI.
And that's respect, opportunity, and inclusion. And people with Down syndrome, they can do anything. They can get married, they can go to college and drive. I went to college, and I do have a disability. Well, the doctor says, well, we're not going to let you be a college student. So I want to be like my brothers did. They graduated from college, all three of them.
And so did you.
But me, I come along because I was part of the Downtown Louisville College Connection. So that's what I went to college.
Mark has done basically everything that we've done, his other three brothers. It's been incredible.
Yeah, and you said that, Greg, you didn't even know he had Down syndrome when you were a child, right?
I didn't know till about the 5th grade. We were never taught to treat him any different. Therefore, I'll put it in nice terms, we would wrestle as hard with each other as we would the other brothers as well. So we had no idea.
So tell us, what inspired you to write this book about Mark?
Well, about 10 years ago, the Lord put on my heart that I need to write this book to get the story out. And I said, okay. And almost immediately, 13 chapter titles came to me, and I got a pen and pencil, wrote them down, waited to hear from the Lord, didn't hear for a while, put it in the drawer. That was about 8 years ago. Then about a year and a half ago, he said, hey, remember that book? And I'm like, Lord, I remember you telling me. But anyway, long story short, those are the same 13 chapters. So definitely God inspired and led to tell the story.
And when is Mark's next event?
Mark, unfortunately, because of COVID, has really kind of been limited on his exposures. But I believe August is when he's going to have another, maybe August, September up in Indianapolis. So we're going to get back out there real quick.
Oh, that's great to hear. And how can people get a copy of your book?
If they go to markjhublerspeaks.com, that's the best way to do it. It's got his life story, a lot of different awards and accolades, and a page to purchase his book.
Wow, it really is a great story. Mark Hubler, motivational speaker for friends like me, and brother Greg Hubler, author of A Miracle Named Mark. Thanks for sharing your story with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And for more information about Mark's upcoming motivational events and to get a copy of A Miracle Named Mark, head on over to markjhublerspeaks.com. A teacher in D.C. is being applauded for her quick thinking when a fire broke out on the other end of a virtual session with a first-grade student. Christian Powell Jr. was attending online class at his grandmother's home Monday when his teacher noticed smoke in the background. She immediately called 911 and told Christian to go find an adult. Within minutes, firefighters arrived and got the situation under control.
It was caught in time, so it wouldn't be a complete damage, and I thank God for that. It could have been worse. Life could be gone.
The cause of the fire is still under investigation, and Christian's grandmother and at least 8 others are now staying at a hotel. And that is Currents News. I'm Christine Persichetti. Thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. I hope to see you again next time.